and
I think Mr. Nicholson and Mr. Harrop are on the committee.
oh, they're coming, yeah. Do we have an agenda?
It's just early site studies.
We'll let them talk, yeah. So we're here tonight to discuss the early learning site study, and I'm going to turn it over to Jade right now to explain what they've uncovered and some of their ideas.
Ms. Bowen, would you like to have the committee introduced to the public?
Yes,
since you
we
are on
should, and we
television
should probably
tonight?
do roll call too, so. Do we have the official list? Do you have that? Okay, do you want to do roll call, and then we,
Here. Mr. Gomes? Mayor Boba?
Here?
Ms. Boatright?
Here?
Smolin?
here?
Riccio? Sorry. Mr. Harrop?
Here.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yeah.
Mr. Vance? Mr. Young? Mr. Nolan? Mr. McComb? Mr. Kimes?
Here.
Ms. Rosa?
Here.
Mr. Rochelle?
Here.
Mr. Russell? And Counselor Sedley?
Here.
She said that.
Yeah, she said.
Got me.
Okay. Do you want a mic? Just- You want to sit up here? We could-
No. Just, there's a mic right up at the podium. And you can take it out if you want to hold it and walk with it.
2 inches.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Jessup from Studio Jade. I'm an architect and educational planner for those of you who don't know me. What we are here today is to present to you all the sites that we have identified, that have been identified through the committees that we've had over the last 2 years, and look at the options, weigh the pros and cons, and to, as a community, come to an idea of what the community-supported vision is for early childhood education, specifically adding the pre-K back to the public schools while they're because they're currently housed in Middletown. So I'm just going to run briefly through what you're going to be seeing. We hope that this is an engaging opportunity to get you on your feet, writing and looking at the different things we've prepared, asking questions. Phil and I, Phil Conte, the president of Studio Jade, he will be with me moving through the different groups for any of your questions. We're happy to explain some of the historical reasons these sites have been identified to us, as well as getting any insights or questions that you have along the way. So being very brief about this, because you can ask us over there. First, we have the Mahara Center. In January, we did a study of the space, knowing that it was a city-owned location, and what we could do to renovate that, bring it up to standard, provide some HVAC upgrades, roofing, and the like. So what we did is we identified essentially this breakdown where we had a district office and as well as pre-K. And in that study, we have it about $4.8 million for renovation. That brings it up to like new condition, as well as providing enough classrooms for the current amount of pre-K students. It does not provide any space for growth. So that's obviously not ideal, knowing that UPK is in our near future educationally. But we wanted to bring it to your attention because it is something that we investigated. We did go out there and have engineers and architects look at it and cost the building. So it's one that we will discuss as we move forward. So
UPK stands for Universal Preschool.
yeah, sorry.
And Kate, just to clarify, there's no room for kindergarten there, only pre-K?
Only pre-K, there are 4 classrooms.
Thank you.
So the next site that we have looked at is the CCRI piece of land. This is CCRI here. Here's the East Bay Early Childhood and the hotel here. So essentially, by looking at just what the city currently owns, this site is clearly large enough to support an early childhood building. It could be, what we're showing now is just a single grade level of about 8 classrooms at each of the sites, knowing that we've had some discussions with the the elementary school principal about the space availability in the buildings and to think fiscally about this. We are operating under the assumption that this is going to be an 8-classroom solution at this point, and I can talk more about that individually. But here we have some parking. We've identified that we would want to come off this road here as, we want to stay away from the major road. Turning there is extremely difficult for all of you, I'm sure you're aware. But there's plenty of space for play area and parking on the site. There could even be additional parking. This is kind of just the minimum of what you would need for that location. So for this, it's about $17.2 million because it is a ground up, so there's additional costs that are not associated with typical renovation projects. This is the Coggeshall Site. So we have identified this in the past. I know that it may or may not even be a viable option given that the city has it, and we can talk about that a little bit, but it may or may not be a reasonable site given how the city wants to deal with the property. But essentially, in order to facilitate an early childhood center, the entire...
We haven't had any discussions regarding Coggeshall, nor have we had any discussions regarding the 5.3 acres. It's a little bit like the last time, is these things kind of drop out of the air. And I knew that the 5.3 acres was being looked at, but the Coggeshall thing dropped out of the air as well. But we don't have any cogent plans. We have less cogent plans for Coggeshall than we have for the 5.3 acres.
Okay. And again, these are sites that we've just identified as city-owned, so some of them, as we understand, may not be as reasonable as others. So for this one, though, in order to facilitate the single-story requirement for the early childhood, it actually would require the entire existing building to come down. It also would take up a good portion of the site. There are some zoning requirements as far as floor area, how big a building can be on a site that we'd have to look at. These sites here is actually ALT, so it's not an option for us to build on them. So essentially this swath of land with the parking would be basically the entirety of the site. You could utilize the ALT space for outdoor play, but you cannot build
Is
there.
that Atlantic, is that?
Aquatic Land Trust.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But there's also 3 small lots of about 20,000 square feet that are unencumbered with the AILT restriction. If I'm where's Coggeshall?
This is Van Zandt.
Van Zandt, rather.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
Van Zandt.
So I'm sorry.
No, please.
What's this right here? The building back?
It's a residential building. So we contacted the Aquatic Land Trust, and these 2 sites are definitely off. They're not touchable. We certainly can look into those. That would be a great area to put play.
Yeah, I can show you on a scale map better. Yeah.
So for this solution, it's about $18.4 million because there's also the demolition costs that there weren't at the other site. 18.4, yes. So as we talk about these projects potentially being linked, we talked to a number of educators who, from the elementary side, who think that it would be best to co-locate maybe here or with this portion of student population. And there's also a lot of educators who believe that there's opportunities to co-locate a program for pre-K at the high school because of some of the pathways that could be there. So we've co-located this area in gray as an early childhood, which with its own drop-off and parking area, which would be a portion of the larger high school build, clearly separate from the high school, so you wouldn't have little ones and big ones walking the halls together. There is some economy in that. This solution is $14.5 million as part of the larger project. When you co-locate programs, you're able to do things like take advantage of you're already building the boiler room, you already have the systems in place, and that there is some economy there. So another one that we wanted to talk about, because we have mentioned this many times, that this keeps coming up over the last 2 years, is the Clooney School. So we studied the Clooney School probably a year and a half ago. looked at a couple of things. We looked at, from what many of you who were at the ad hoc committee, there was an idea of an addition for the pre-K, and that was a larger cost. If we were just looking to renovate for those pre-K students, in this solution, we have 18,000 square feet, and it's 3.2 million. That does not include purchase price, and that would not be reimbursable unless the building was owned. So if there was a lease negotiation that could be made up, the city would still be on the hook for 3.2 million to renovate that up to current building code. Again, also, it's, we understand that this is not necessarily the targeted part of town, but it's certainly the most economical solution, so we didn't want to preclude it because of where it is, because of the financial benefits. Okay, and that is not what it's supposed to look like. We'll see it over there. We are right here. We looked at, originally we did not look at this because of the way that it interacted with the site, taking away some playing fields. It was very difficult. We could not fit much larger addition where we were looking at 3 grade levels at one point. As we think a little more fiscally responsible, we can create a 2-story addition right here, which is at the end of the hall down here on the sort of down the hill. And by doing that, you'd be able to reallocate these rooms which were designed for pre-K to the pre-K students. You are not solving the overcrowding feeling that is here. I would definitely look to the principal to talk a little bit about for those of you who are concerned about the existing feeling of overcrowded and what that means. But for this, we looked at adding some new parking, relocating the basketball courts because they're kind of here, doing this addition so that you could have grades pre-K through 4 in this building. The 5 to 8 would remain in Thompson. It also creates some additional classrooms or half classrooms for pull-out breakout, for ELL services, and some office space, which is what's, I think, significantly lacking in this building, is specialist space. So we did include that, and for this solution, it is $10.8 million. So, all that being said, I think that's the last one. I'm sure you all have questions, you have thoughts and opinions, but what we'd like you to do is for everyone to stand up, including those sitting at their microphones, and we want you to break up into groups of 6. So Phil will help direct you so that we don't have everyone in a single group. And we want to have a conversation where you together make lists of pros and cons of each site. There's certainly, as I mentioned, some solutions are less expensive. That's a pro. They may not solve all of your problems. That's a con. So we're looking at all of your opinions to be on the table. There's no wrong answer. This is a community discussion because it is your solution. I think you want to add something?
Thanks, Kate. So there's 6 stations over there. I would like, yes? Sure. Let me explain the activity. Then we certainly can answer your question. But the activity is meant to give you a forum to voice that. At each station, there's a sheet of paper that we would like you to talk. There will only be about 4 of you at each station. Identify what you think are the advantages and disadvantages of that. After 7 minutes, you will go to the next station as a group of 4 and do the same thing. So you will get to voice your advantages or disadvantages at each one of those stations over the next 35 minutes. Then we're going to reconvene and answer any questions. So certainly, let what is on your mind, and we can talk about it now.
Okay. I'm just surprised from the Mahara Center, activity, 4.8 million. And so I don't understand, when you went through your 6 sites, is this relevant to the fact that we decided that pre-K and 1 are together, or did you separate stuff, or like in the last center, who's in that center? Just pre-K?
So all of these solutions that we're discussing now are just pre-K. We had to make some decisions as we went through this discussion, knowing that that $173 million is not something that the city can afford, and it's something that we've heard that the community doesn't support. So in our efforts to pare back the scope of the project, we had discussions with the principal of Pell. We had where we asked tough questions about, well, could we do this? And with some flexibility and some great teaching staff, the thought is that it is not completely necessary. Would it be a good thing? Sure, absolutely. But at the same time, when we're thinking about the big picture of all of the education that's happening in Newport, these two discussions happen hand in hand. And when we're looking at a capacity of funding of maybe 100 million or 125, and that's even a large number, we had to make some tough decisions. And one of them was, could we look at just looking at the pre-K for an early childhood?
So does that assume that K1 are in health still?
Correct.
In all these scenarios? And that isn't possible?
Correct. I think you had a question over there?
I think just to add to that discussion, RIDE has a certain determination on space is part of the thing, and we are using more space than what they allocate in their funding formula. So if you look at all the reports, the Jacobs report, it says that we are not at capacity. Now, the way we use the buildings are, is not the way that they would use the buildings, I think. So it's trying to, the other thing, so that's one thing. And the second thing is when you look at the demographics and actually look at them, there's spikes in grade levels at many points in time. And so some of it is, there may have to be some flexibility. We may have to figure out how to address some of those spikes because every grade level is not in a spike situation.
I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. So all of the solutions presented, with the exception of the Pell add-on, would house only pre-K students.
Correct.
And the Pell add-on would have pre-K, K, 1 through 4 in this building.
Correct.
Thank you.
And I actually have a question.
Sure.
On the Mahara Center, my favorite building. You said no space for growth. And that assumption, I assume, is based upon what you believe to be the ability to grow the building, if you will, because of the space limitations of Myantonomi Park?
Correct.
Okay.
And where we were operating in the same footprint.
Yeah.
If you look closer, we have relocated the entrance to be in a little safer location
Right.
with that, but it is using the existing footprint of the building.
Okay, because I have a thought on that. I'll share it with you later, yeah.
Sure.
Right. So again, what was put into stage 1 was a hope and a desire, as has been stated many times. It would be the best of the scenarios. And that was the best of scenarios when you actually, we can have the superintendent talk to this, but you have to look at the demographer's report. You have to look at what RIDE will allow for funding and so on, and what they allow for sizing. And if you look at what they say, we should be able to fit into Thompson with 5 through 8. Well, if you want to contribute some money, but we have to cut it out of some place. That's the problem. I'm just saying what the educational team and leadership team has tried to do is to try to figure out what is the best use of the funds to have a quality educational solution for young families and students in Newport. And I think that, so this is, would you like to speak to it, please?
Donna, I'm agreeing with you. I do believe there has not been a public discussion about abandoning the PK in one model and the different levels that were discussed publicly that were reviewed by this committee previously. Since the stage 1 was approved and forwarded to RIDE, there have been internal discussions about the reality of the price tag and what the city feels is affordable or not affordable. So Kate and Studio Jade have been visiting with the elementary principal, other principals in the district, and some other educational leaders, and they've been having the discussions about what the reality of what we could build is possible here. Tonight, from their presentation, I'm gleaning that they're showing all the options that have been reviewed over the past almost 2 years. We're getting to close to 2 years, and sharing out so that the public is fully aware of all the different options that were vested, and also at the same time hearing loudly and clearly concerns about future costs, locations of where we would like our children to attend school, the majority of our children because of where they live, and the reality that we have a space shortage not only for our little ones, but we also have a facilities challenge for our older students. So tonight, I think the meeting should have probably started off with, here we are now, and this is the reason why, and here are your 6 options.
Just one comment. I think that the price is too high too. I'm not saying that, but we do not know, the public does not know, what is in the detail of that high price that was put up there. It was told that it was a wish list, there was a lot of wishes, and none of those have been costed out, or I haven't seen it. And so here we are, focusing on one aspect of the cost, which I agree, we're gonna get down. But we don't know all the other things that were put in there that maybe should come out or not, I don't know, but just look at one aspect of it.
So Studio Jade had another internal meeting with just school officials and school building principals, department chairs from English language learners, special education, and Kate actually sat down with us, and I believe Ms. Boatwright and Ms. Bolin were present as well, and they went over the list of, here's the square footage, here's what we put in stage 1, and here's what RIDE is saying we can have. So that internally, that document has already, and I believe all the leaders had to have their comments in by last Friday, possibly, or
Tuesday.
Last Tuesday. And so now Studio Jade is looking at what they're saying they believe could be feasible, and I do not believe at this point in time that document's ready to be shared because you're still compiling the data you're collecting. So I do believe information, and not only that what is happening in public workshops, but also the work that's going on in internal meetings. It would probably be best if we start posting those as well, just to give updates of what is happening.
Yeah, when you say internal meetings, can you specify who's participating in those internal meetings? Because I haven't been able to participate in them, and I'm just curious as to
It was
what those decision makers are.
I'm sorry. It was school officials, because part of the process, Studio Jade explained to us that they needed school officials and they needed building leaders. They wanted to talk to some of our specialized areas, such as our director of Student Services, our Director of English Language Learners. They also talked to the building principals. I'm trying to think who else was at I attended that meeting to hear what the process was going to be. And then we looked over the educational strategic plan, our goals for the district. And then from there, they gave us the square footage of what we had to, basically, we were given a number and we were told we need to look at this. Now, the other thing is, I know Mr. Kimes and Ms. Rosa, who are on the board, I believe the document was shared or may not have been shared at this point in time with them, because that was a comment as well that I asked.
Sure, I'm happy to share that. This is, I will say as an update, we've made great progress with the educators. The reason these meetings are driven by the educators is because they are the boots on the ground that have to live in these spaces with students. So we want, as they made their wish list, now we are putting the responsibility on them to determine, well, what do you need to teach? How do you envision this? And so they've really been educator discussions intentionally. We have plans to meet with different representatives of all of the different groups, again, for the second time. So we've already met with just about every educator at the high school level. We've had many discussions on district-wide special education services, what is going to be offered in the new school, what spaces are there, what spaces within the Newport community can be capitalized upon. There's a university so that you don't have to build something twice. All these are really great discussions. We've managed to bring the square footage down to I think 40-some thousand square feet, which at this point in our space planning means dollars. We need to get to a place where this building, which was a wish list, is a building that can be built and paid for and approved by the community. So there are some decisions that are being made high level by the educators. We also looked at, when we looked at adding the 8 classrooms to this building as an example, which we will look at, we looked at and said, what else do they need? They need some more ELL space. They need some more space for teachers. They need some other space that's not just classrooms. It is not wise to just add classrooms to be a building because you're adding people and you need bathrooms and things like that. So that's why we did add a number of other things, which we'll show you when we go over to the tables. That's all very important. It certainly doesn't increase the size of the cafeteria, but it does create ancillary spaces for pull-out, for different special educators to be closer to the classroom so you don't have the kids trekking all over the school, which is now going to be much bigger. So we did talk about that. And it came down, and perhaps Tracy can speak to it if she's interested, but it comes down to, well, what do we need to do? And, will this work? And from what we understand, the answer is yes.
I'm a little confused. Sorry. One of the complaints about Pell is that it is overcrowded. So are you saying, and I thought that to bring relief to that, you need space for pre-K, K, and 1. Now, what about just pre-K and K? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, are you saying that by reconfiguring this building, they can somehow make the more space? I'm
No, you wouldn't be adding the 5th grade back. That's why we needed to do the 3 different grade levels of addition here. What we're saying is you don't bring the 5th grade back. You leave them at the middle school.
right. Yeah.
At this end of the hallway, there are classrooms currently used by K, which were designed as pre-K classrooms. You put the pre-K there, and all of the grade levels shift up, so you'd have an older set of students, the older cohort in the new addition.
So by creating these spaces for just pre-K, though, are we actually helping the situation at all here at Pell?
No, and if you look through the documentation in the stage 1, which is public, and we can put a digital copy up on the school's website if that's helpful. I know that there's a copy in City Hall, but that's probably not really great. It's a very long document to go, it's a big read. But you can see that the demographics actually show only like 10 more students in this building in the next 10 years. And
the link is on our website to get to the document.
great, perfect. And I encourage you all to read it. It's got a lot of really in-depth information. One of the things that when we looked at it and we went to it is, we understand, we've heard from everyone that Pell feels overcrowded. But when you look at the numbers and the flexible things that can be done based on quality teachers in this building, the bubble that's here now is going to age up and out, and it's really not going to be any different in population. It's not going up significantly, it's going up just a little bit. So by adding the addition and these other spaces, you're creating some relief. Also, right now, currently there are 4 pre-K classrooms or 4. We are providing an addition of 8 classrooms. So in the meantime, when this bubble, which is here, is happening in the next couple of years, 4 of those 8 can be used for whatever class is overcrowded. So by nature of building in 8, you are creating relief. It also allows you to not have to build when the state comes down and says, universal pre-K, you have to do it, but we're not paying you any money to build it. So it creates the solution for both of those things, which likely will be coming down in the next couple of years.
I have 2 questions. One is, all of these proposals, are they available for everyone digitally?
I gave it to Kathy. She's going to keep this, and she will upload it tomorrow, whenever.
And then is there a way to, because one of the biggest questions is like the equivalent between number of students and square footage and all of that. Can we like map for each option, like how many students would actually be going in there? Because I think that's where I'm getting a little bit lost when we talk about especially the Pell edition, is how many, okay, so we're building 8 new classrooms, how many total kids are gonna be here, and like just really spell it out a little more?
Absolutely. So a lot of this comes from, there's essentially, we've generated a summary of spaces, which is just an Excel form that lists out every single space, the number based on your population, what other things have to be there, like you're not going to build a building without a nurse's office, you have to have it there. You can't just build a pre-K center without some sort of multi-purpose space. Here you can utilize what you already have versus there, but we have developed that space summary, which helps us to size these different programs for every option, so we can certainly make that available with these. It'll sort of explain why, and right now, square feet is dollars. So without knowing what's on the walls and what the floors are made of and what structural system and how much HVAC is going to be, we really have to equate square footage with dollars. And so that is essentially a listing of all the space that's required. So we're absolutely, it's transparent. So happy to share those as well.
Thank you.
But it seems to me that we're going to spend 35 minutes on some of these things that are not workable. I mean, it doesn't seem to fit our needs. I know that you're struggling looking for 6 available sites for the solution. Thank you for that. But it's like, why would we spend 35 minutes doing total funds on the Mahara Center or the Clooney School? We're not going to buy that building if you're talking about cost. So why do that? That's a process.
Why would we not buy that building as an option?
Well, I thought you were trying to reduce costs, so she did, in her solution, she didn't have the purchase price of Clooney and Solutions, so I don't really know.
So the overall price with the purchase that we looked at way back when was about $5 million.
The big reason we're doing this is the pressure that we've gotten from citizen groups and some concerned citizens to ensure that we're doing our due diligence. So here we are.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but to spend 35 minutes on something that's not workable, I like this discussion better.
And I want to be clear, it's not 35 minutes on each one. I'm only asking you to be at one station for 5 minutes. It's important that we be as transparent as possible. I have a lot of confidence in this administration, this building committee, and town council that they could make good decisions on their own. But we want to give everybody the opportunity to share their comments as whatever it is, pro or con. So we don't have to go through all the stations. but we do want to make them available. Justin, did you have something?
If I don't say this in public, I'll be accused of saying it in private. I don't necessarily agree with your demographer. I think we need to be careful. There seems to be a correlation between the increase in English language learners and the increase in the population in school over the last 5 years. A time period when, because of the change in visas for workers coming into Newport, some of our hotels couldn't rely on some of the workforce they used to rely on. That's my understanding. So they may have started relying on other workforces. And we're looking at 2 new hotels coming online next year. The third is being talked about on the waterfront, and 2 more hotels up in the north end. And I would suggest that the workforce that those buildings are going to be attracted to could be additive to your English language learner population. So when you say you only expect 10 more students, I'm just concerned, because as my fellow councils have pointed out, what's the loading on these buildings? If you fine-tune this to 10 people, and people start showing up in 2 or 3 years, we may not have investigated enough about what the outcomes changes might be coming out of it. What do we need to do?
Have you estimated the cost of pre-K and K, not just pre-K and then pre-K to 1?
We looked at what a 16 classroom addition, which would be the 2 grade levels like pre-K and grade 5 would look like here, or pre-K and extra classrooms for grade 4 would look like. There's almost no play area left on the site, which is an important part of the educational experience for kids. That's originally why we didn't look at this site, because from day one we were looking at pre-KK. So that's not necessarily a great thing. It's doable. We could add 2 grade levels here. It also doubles the cost. So you made the point earlier that we're having this conversation in isolation, but we're not, because we know that there's a high school project that's part of this conversation. So all things have to be weighed about the district's goal. So it's not just an early childhood discussion amongst itself. It is a discussion for the entire future of the district.
The other thing that I have to say is that, so this project is dealing with the high school and expanding pre-K and K, and one thing we know is the city can only afford so much money. So if we try to solve every problem at one time, it's overwhelming. And so right now, some facts that everybody may not know, because we only just learned this, we're only, the 12th day of school right now. So, but right now, Tracy, I'm going to point to you, but my understanding is we actually have fit all the classes without losing any music and art classrooms this year for the first time since Pell's been around. Is that true? And we have an extra classroom. So things change, and when you say you want to see everything, the problem is in school, it can change any time. And, but the demographer report, when you actually look at it, a lot of school districts around the state of Rhode Island have just been losing students while we have been gaining students. That's an unusual thing happening. So what we're trying to do is, I think this solves some expansion issues at Pell, particularly if you use the Pell example. They get more space. It hadn't been presented before, so thank you very much for putting that on the table. But then, Pell could kindergarten could be expanded, different grade levels could be expanded with this proposal. Right now, we only offer half-day, 3 days, 3 classrooms of pre-K, and I would suggest we don't try, my vote would be don't try to expand that too fast, because we're trying to do a lot right now. We have to get a new high school going as well. That's a very, very important mile marker, and I think that we need to stick to a plan that says we have to get a new high school, we need to get expanded capacity here at Pell for the pre-K, which is not even housed here, and some expansion for K. And I think that this solution might be a viable option.
Can we just clarify too, there's not any expected decision tonight? This is a information gathering, correct?
No, this is just information gathering. We will, once we sort of go through our exercise. No? Okay, well, we'll be looking for your comments, so please reach out to us.
I wanted to,
The land across the street. Oh, we did talk about it. It's not ideal to have young students crossing a street. Additionally, so between the parking lots, right? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, it really only came up as a discussion. It can't even hold 8. It can hold maybe a couple of classrooms. You also then would have to build all plumbing. The cost for utilities would be very expensive because you're basically building a whole new building. So it also is a very small piece of land.
I also wanted to respond to Donna. I mean, the reason we have to go over every single option that's been presented is if you follow social media, a lot of people express themselves on there, and there are a lot of people that are 100%, let's do it at Clooney, and there's people that say, oh, we have to, what happened to the, Mahara Center? I mean, so by going over every single one of them, right, and looking into them, we can say we did our due diligence. So even though you maybe, in my mind, I have preferences, but I do believe that it's important that we address every single person's concern. And then to Justin's point, I worry just like you do, Justin, because if you build it, they will come. We learned that, right? And I do believe that, our Spanish, students, it seems to be ever increasing every year, and the hotel issue is a concern. But, we asked the demographer to take that into consideration.
Are we, because I have questions on all of them, so I'm wondering if we're going into that exercise, or are we just having questions?
Yeah, I would love to. Let's go.
If you would not mind, maybe just let's count off 1 through 6. That way everybody can start at a station. 5 minutes later, we'll just rotate it. So 1.
We can do that, yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6,
1, 2.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, anybody else? Anybody who did not give me a number? Okay. Then let's go ahead and take the 1s. Start up here, then 2, the middle table 3 and 4, the end table 5 and 6.
So there's 2 of them. Who's the big who's he with?
of that?
Are you gonna put this online?
Yes, these things will be written up and put into documents along with the photographs. Is that okay? The second thing I'm going to ask, because I got the mic here, I like the mic, but I'm just wondering whether, did everybody get a sense of the outcomes, or should we try to summarize a little bit what has been said since we all came here to learn tonight? I think that would be helpful, don't you all think? Maybe can you guys go around and give sort of the summary feelings of each item? Would that be viable?
So someone is a pro, someone else is a con.
Mm-hmm.
So reading the list, you're not going to get a sense of the true differences in opinions. I think.
Kate, can you maybe like put together a summary of all the comments that have been made?
Yeah,
and that can
absolutely.
be sent out to the distro?
And we've also been asked to put the dollars per square foot for each solution so that you can compare apples to apples, because some solutions are obviously larger than others. What I'm just really pleased that we had you all engaged. I know that for some people, they don't consider some of these options at all. Looking them in their totality and looking at all the different options together, I think is important so that you can see sort of what the different solutions. We have reached out to the city planner if there's any other available sites. We don't believe that there are, so we have not really heard back from him, but that is, we're still not going to, we're not moving forward with any of these solutions right now. We're still in the sort of community outreach portion of this discussion. I think what I heard are concerns that we've heard before. Transportation and busing seems to be one that is certainly a concern, and I completely understand. I think the space opportunities and making sure we have the right space here before adding more students is a concern that makes sense. We are certainly going to be working, again, with the educators to make sure that the decisions that are made, Colleen and the leadership at each school are behind, because, you know, I'm not an educator. It's not my place to tell anyone what their solution should be, but having their input and moving forward with something that the community understands why certain things are made is very important. So this is just, again, sort of a first step in this conversation. We're going to be continually meeting with different educators. The school building committee has a number of meetings scheduled. We may be pushing off some of our workshops about design until later, because this is really an important conversation in this community, is to make the right decision globally for the children. So we're happy to have as many conversations as we need to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the discussion. So the reason that these wonderful educators are here is also to answer any questions. They know better than us how the changing needs of ELL students or special education or young ones in general is supported. We have the superintendent to think about the direction of the district in its, again, in its sort of in its totality. So, you know, this is just one of many discussions as we move forward, and we look at the both projects in context of the district. So, yep.
For my own memory, pre-K will have to be here next fall, correct? Because we're at JFK by then? Because I know, will we be somewhere by next
Yeah.
fall?
We've reached, or in the process of reaching out to JFK to see if that is a possibility for next year or not. But as of right now, our lease ends in June. So that is also a possibility to have to bring the pre-K back, and that would then impact our, right. A decision has to be made very soon, so we're on top of it right now.
What's the step 2 on this? Like, when are you gonna make a decision? What more information do you need about to make this decision?
So Studio Jade gave the administration and the co-chairs a timeline and calendar. And I just, and we've started to map that out. And we have it, it's actually color-coded for what are public meetings and what are internal meetings. And by the discussion just this evening, I think it may be beneficial for everyone if you see everything that's happening. So you know when you come to the meeting that there have been some internal meetings, and the internal meetings are with the school staff and the educators and what decision-making process they're going through at the time. So we've been in the middle of just trying to get this all together. As Kate has mentioned, in the past week, about a week and a half ago, we came together, they started to look at the square footage, and they started to look at different programming, and they started to look at what's doable, what's not doable, and we've been asking all the leaders and directors of the department. So I think it may be helpful for the public if we just get that all posted and out on the website so everyone's really clear that what the calendars are, what the meetings are that are already set for public, and also what's happening internally, and we can report out on that. That may be the best thing for us. Yes. Yes, so this meeting will be posted. It will have all the information that was shared out this evening, and then you'll also see what, and actually Phil and Kate, they kind of drive the bus, they kind of direct us on, okay, now these are the things we need to do next regarding our process here.
But the next meeting is October 7th, which is at the high school. We want to talk about that, and then we will have some workshops after that. Is that going to be the next thing to get the community involved?
The next date is October 7th. It is a tour, I believe, of Rogers High School. We're going back in time, and we're doing another tour of Rogers High School to bring those that haven't been involved in the process up to speed quickly about the facility itself. Then there's a workshop, and I believe we also have a meeting that night. It's a very busy.
Yeah, so it's at
Afternoon,
2:30
evening.
for the tour. That will be about an hour, and then the meeting will start at 3:30 to 5 for the school building committee. And that's an open meeting. So everybody got that on their schedule, I hope. And then, but that's been sent out to everybody, and then what we need to do is add other dates on the schedule that comes out by the school department for other workshops, right?
Right, for this group right here, the dates have been sent out of what the dates are, where the location of the meetings are, and the times. But we will, I believe it's better for the entire process, instead of keeping them separate, we put them all on one document, so everyone's really clear what's happening every day, every week during this whole process, whether it's in internal meetings, public meetings, or if we have postings on the website.
Is it possible, and this might be, I think this is probably something that would take a little bit more time, but possible to get some of the educators' thoughts on these options? Because I'm looking at them and I'm forming opinions, and but I'm not an expert, and I don't really necessarily know what it takes to educate students in any of those options. And I'm not asking or wanting to put any of them on the spot in terms of a recommendation or anything like that, but just what they see as what educating students in the various options would look like.
So I know Kate has been talking to all the teachers. I know Bill and Jess are on the committee tonight, and they're here. They have been on the committee. And I know Kate has been working with them to gather information, so we will continue to do that. But I believe also we need to get it from the little ones. We need to get it from, meaning the PK through 2 teachers as well.
Yeah. But can we see that? Because that's
we
not.
We can post that.
Yeah, okay, because that would be really helpful, I think.
So the school committee meeting is after that because the next day is a holiday. So they're back to back, but we can certainly work out an alternative time for the tour. The purpose of the tour is, I know that for those who don't have children in the high school, it's easy to think about it, maybe what it looked like 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's to really show you a sense of what's in the school, what it looks like now. They do a great job of cleaning it and doing the best they can, but the school is out of date. And I think it'll be, I know that there was one not too long ago, but again, this is another opportunity for people to see the facility currently, to maybe help them make decisions about anything that they feel moving forward. I know that there's been a lot of people who expressed that it could just be repaired. And so it's to really show them what it is right now there.
It is.
Jewish holiday on the 8th.
I think you probably want the students out of the high school, like by 2.
Well, they'll still be there.
But not home.
Yeah, the students will be giving the tour, and they've done a great job in the past, from what I understand. So I think it's a good opportunity for everyone to ask them questions about their experience there as well. Yeah, we could do a weekend too, for sure.
Yeah, I think that might be easier for a lot of people.
Okay.
Right.
We'll find a Saturday.
Yep.
Sorry, Colleen, I spent 4 years there. I'm not going to give up my Saturday.
It was real different when you were there, Joe.
So if anyone has any more questions, we're happy to stick around for a couple minutes. We'll be publishing a lot of this. Keep on the lookout for everything that's going to be updated, as well as encouraging your friends and neighbors to participate. It's important. The more people that we get involved in the process, the better the outcome is for everyone. Obviously, we're very thrilled to have you all here, but there's quite a few people who are not here, and we want to get them and their opinions so that it really is a representative solution for the entirety of the community. So we're flexible. If you have other suggestions about alternative times, and please reach out. We're happy to take an email, phone call, whatever you feel like you need to share with us. We're happy to talk to you.
All right, thank you very much for coming.